Hey everybody, Rob Maurer here, and today we are talking about Tesla stock. Ron Barron was on CNBC this morning to do the same. We also have a few product updates, including another price drop on the Model S, and a couple other notes to go through as well. So we'll start off with the stock. Tesla stock on the day today finished up 3.3% to $461.30. That compared to the NASDAQ with a tougher day down 0.8%. So Tesla over the last week has been pretty quietly up about 8.5% and has now closed at its third highest all-time high close. Some of that overperformance may have been driven by Ron Barron appearing on CNBC this morning, though of course Ron has been bullish on Tesla for a long time, so you wouldn't really think his bullish comments would really change any perception around Tesla at this point, but I suppose it never hurts to have a little bit of that reaffirmation. And that was definitely given by Barron. Speaking of the market cap, he said, quote, "I've said for a long time I thought it was going to be $1 to $2 trillion. With what developments have taken place recently, I think $2 trillion is the right number, so I think it's 5x from here." End quote. As for why that would be, it's pretty simple. Barron says, quote, "I think they're going to be doing $5, $6, $7, or $800 billion in sales in 10 years on just the cars. And the batteries is another unbelievable business, which I'm very excited about." End quote. So that's pretty close to the super rough estimates that we had outlined after Battery Day based on Tesla's 3 terawatt hour target by 2030, which really laid that roadmap for Tesla to potentially become the most valuable company in the world. Good to see Barron thinking along those same lines. The other news that may have impacted the stock a little bit today was an increased price target on Tesla from Goldman Sachs. They increased their price target from $400 per share to $450, primarily due to an improved outlook on the automotive industry as a whole over the next couple of years. They increased their total automotive unit sales forecasts by about 5% over that period. We are now 1 week out from Tesla's Q3 earnings report and conference call. That means that Say Technologies has opened up the Q&A submission process for that call. If you're not familiar, that's a platform that allows retail investors to submit and vote for questions to be asked on the call. That does require linking a brokerage account to verify shares, so obviously make your own decision on that. But if you do choose to do that, you can submit questions, you can vote for them. My 2 questions this quarter are, does Tesla's tabless cell design allow for significantly higher peak charging rates? And does it improve the required taper curve? So we've talked a little bit about this. Of course, Tesla shared a slide on this at Battery Day, but it was a little bit unclear. And there are a few different schools of thought about what exactly that slide means, though I'm sure we'll have some strong opinions on that in the comments. But I don't think it's exactly super clear, so I'm hoping for some clarification on that. And then my second question, which we've talked about quite a bit over the last few days, is Tesla planning to start 4680 cell production at Giga Berlin at the same time as vehicle production? Can Tesla share more information on what products will use the battery cells from the pilot line in Fremont? In general, I try to discourage asking multiple questions within the same question, but I do think these are both related enough under essentially the rollout plan for 4680 topic. The reason I ask about Giga Berlin, yes, I am aware of Elon's tweet saying that there will be a lot of new technology with those initial rollouts, but we have seen some documents about cell production from Giga Berlin, and then I believe plans were resubmitted without those cell production plans. So right now it's a little bit unclear on exactly what is happening there. And because Elon has talked about this a little bit on Twitter, I'm hopeful that they'll give us more details and clarify that situation as well. So if you are interested in hearing answers to both or either of those questions, make sure to vote for them. I'll put the link to both in the description or the show notes. And in general, I would encourage people to go ahead and vote because that's the only way that we can get good questions. For example, I don't mean to pick on questions, but right now there's one about an ATV and a possible jet ski jetpack product line extension question. May be interesting for consumers, not really the place here for an investor call, and Tesla's focus is obviously not on those product lines. So personally, I just think that we have an opportunity to get more information, and voting for the questions that you want asked is the way to do that. All right, next up, yesterday we of course talked about Tesla lowering the price on the Model S, $3,000. Well, it looks like today Tesla will again be lowering the price on the Model S by another roughly $2,500. Elon on Twitter saying, quote, "The gauntlet has been thrown down. The prophecy will be fulfilled. Model S price changes to $69,420 tonight." End quote. So the base price Model S will now cost exactly the same as 1,000 pairs of Tesla short shorts. Altogether, that's going to mean a $5,500 price decline, or about 7.5% from the price earlier this week. As I'm recording, the design studio has not yet been updated, so we don't know if there will be a further price decline on the performance version to keep the spread between the two the same, or if that spread will increase like it would if this only applies to the long-range version. This also means that barring any updates to the Model X price, there will now be about a $10,000 spread between the base price Model S and the base price Model X. Along the same lines of what we talked about yesterday, I think it's pretty clear that Tesla has the capability of producing more Model S than they have been. So I think they're probably going to try to go all out on that this quarter. And I think if they were to do that, they wouldn't necessarily have the demand without some pricing changes. So I think that's what we're seeing here. And as far as the margin impact, it's not really going to be all that significant. Tesla has been selling about 16,000 S and X combined each quarter. I'll assume that Model X, based on these pricing changes, is more than half of that. So let's say about 7,000 Model S per quarter. We had a $5,500 price decline here on the base model. We still don't know about the performance, but let's say worst case, all these vehicles just sell for $5,500 less. That would only be a gross profit reduction of $38.5 million, while Tesla's gross profit last quarter was $1,267 million. So absolute worst case, that's about 3% of Tesla's quarterly gross profit, which I don't want to make it seem like nothing. That obviously trickles down and can cause much lower operating margins and net income in the end of the day. But that's a worst case assumption, and I would argue even unrealistic. Tesla, with these price cuts, should sell more Model S vehicles. Let's say they only sell 2,000 more, which I think is pretty conservative. So they only sell 2,000 more, let's say an average selling price of 80,000, which again I think is conservative. If those happen at a 24% margin, which I think is achievable, especially because your gross margins are going to improve the higher the volume goes, then that equation already gets you an additional $38.5 million of gross profit. Oh, and by the way, it also generates more revenue and gets more electric vehicles on the road. If you layer in any other assumptions, for example, the average selling price not declining by that full $5,500, which would certainly not be the case if the performance doesn't follow the second price update, or if you assume that any new buyers aren't putting some of that discount back into the vehicle in terms of options that they might not have selected before. So the actual decline in gross margin dollars is probably less than that $38.5 million, and the actual incremental gross margin dollars probably ends up being more than that $38.5 million, meaning this is actually a good move for Tesla, which I know bears would look at me and say, oh, that's ridiculous, such a biased opinion, but that's just the simple math, the simple facts of the situation. If anyone has a counter argument to that, please feel free to share that in the comments, but definitely share the math with it. Your gross margin percentage is going to decline because you're generating smaller amounts of gross margin per revenue dollar, but as long as your revenue dollars are increasing and your gross margin dollars are increasing, that's fine. That's where your operating leverage comes into play, and those additional gross margin dollars trickle down and your operating margin can actually improve. So those are my thoughts, and even if you don't account for any of the potential positives from this reduction, the worst case is still a pretty small impact. Oh, and back to the reason for this, in Elon's tweet he said the gauntlet has been thrown down. Now we don't know for sure, but Lucid did announce today that they will be offering a base version of the Lucid Air, which they're calling the Elemental version, which they say has a projected range of 406 miles, and will start with a base price of $69,900. So before this announcement, the Model S started at $71,500, and Elon today saying the gauntlet has been thrown down, and then undercutting the price by $500. It sure seems like they're related, especially because on the Plaid Model S, they listed the range as 520 plus miles, when the Lucid Air has a max range of 517. So Elon does seem to sure be keeping an eye on what Lucid has going on, but a couple things to mention here. So this is available early 2022 from Lucid, so not available yet, and that $69,900 price, that is post federal tax credit incentive of $7,500, which of course Tesla is no longer eligible for. So the actual base price of this Lucid Air would be $77,400. And again, best case, that's 18 months from now. All right, moving on from the Model S, we have a couple of other product updates from Elon on Twitter. The first is on the Model Y, Tesla owner Silicon Valley asking if there were any updates on the 7-seat version of the Model Y. Elon replied, quote, "Starting production on 7-seater next month, initial deliveries early December," end quote. I know that update will make a lot of people happy. I'm also curious on the single motor rear wheel drive variant. I'll leave that struggle in there, but last we heard about that was on July 12th, when Elon said that that would be coming in a few months. It's now been a few months, so I think that could kind of show up whenever. We also got a small update here on Sentry mode. Kim Packett on Twitter was asking, quote, "Elon, can we get an option to delete all Sentry footage at once? They tend to pile up and corrupt the card." To which Elon replied, yes. So I wanted to pass that along in case anybody missed it. And then on Tesla Solar, there has been a video going around over the last day or so of a 15 kilowatt solar roof being installed by a third party, Weddell & Sons Roofing, in just 4 days. Certainly Tesla has had their share of slow installations and installation issues as well, but nice to see a successful project being carried out quickly. Elon on Twitter replied to a Teslarati article on this, saying, quote, making progress, end quote. And I thought the time lapse was cool to watch, so I'll put a link to that in the show notes if you do want to check that out as well. Next is a quick FYI on an upcoming presentation by JB Straubel, the co-founder and former chief technology officer of Tesla, who has now shifted his focus over to his battery recycling startup, Redwood Materials. So this upcoming Friday, October 16th, between 7 a.m. Pacific and 9 a.m. Pacific time, JB will be speaking at Stanford Energy's Storage X Initiative Symposium, which is apparently free and open to all. So I'll put a link for this in the show notes. Stanford describes the Storage X initiative by saying it, quote, brings together Stanford faculty from material science to computer science to economics to tackle the dominant challenges in energy storage. By addressing gaps between academic and industrial R&D, Storage X aims to accelerate the global development and implementation of revolutionary energy storage technologies and concepts, end quote. Always good to hear from JB, so we'll keep an eye out for that. And then the last thing today, just an update for tomorrow's episode. This will be a live stream. I'll be joined by Alex Potter of Piper Sandler to discuss his latest notes on Tesla, which have included deep dives into both the potential for autonomy and the energy business. And then we're going to try something a little bit new, which I think is pretty exciting. So Piper Sandler on their end has let their institutional clients know about this event. So they will be watching and they'll have the ability behind the scenes to ask questions on the Piper Sandler side. And then on my end, I'm going to have my editor, Jossam, watching the live chat and picking out some questions that are asked throughout the course of the conversation that we'll be able to address as well. So try to make it easy on him, be respectful in that live chat, don't spam your questions, but do be thinking about what you might want asked. I think Alex does an amazing job. And one of my whole goals this whole time has been to sort of bridge the gap between institutional investors and retail investors. And I think this is very emblematic of that goal. So I'm super excited about it. I hope you'll all tune in. That'll be tomorrow, Thursday, October 15th at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. UTC. That'll do it for today though. As always, thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and sign up for notifications. Make sure you're following me on Twitter as well at Tesla Podcast. And I'll see you tomorrow for the Thursday, October 15th episode of Tesla Daily. Thank you.